Good morning, everyone. As it is 2 minutes past the hour, I want to be respectful of everyone's time and get started. Thank you so much for joining us here today for the first in our series of webinars on how you can accelerate the value in your business to consistently grow valuable, attractive, and transferable businesses at any time in your business life cycle. So we're going to talk today about the 5 stages to transforming your business. I'm Dave Clayman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the 12 Points brand and specifically 12 Points Business Advisors. For me, I won't go too deep into my background, but leading fellow business owners, it's not just a job. It really is a calling for me. I enjoy helping other entrepreneurs realize their life's work. That's really what speaks to me. So we're going to start off talking about the life cycle of a business. Pretty basic. You start the business. The goal is obviously to grow the business. And then ultimately, we want to be able to transition the business. And every business owner is going to have an eventual transition. We can be well prepared or we can be ill prepared. So what do I mean by every business owner is going to have a transition? Well, hopefully what we're going to have is a sale, either to an external party or some kind of a transfer to an internal party, employees, management team, our own relatives, whatever that might be. However, only 50% of business transitions will actually happen on your timeline. So what that means is we need to think about how to be prepared and what kind of things happen that aren't on our timeline. Well, they're the subject of next month's webinar, but they're what we call the 5 Ds: death, disability, divorce, disagreement, or distress. Hopefully you'll join us next month to hear more about how we prepare for any of those 5 not great outcomes, but that's the things that we need to be thinking about. And then actually 80% of businesses don't actually get sold. So this is that number one goal I talked about. The goal of every business owner really is to make your business valuable. Whether you sell it or not, you want it to be valuable while you own it. You'd love it to be transferable because that's the ultimate payout. Again, whether that be internally to family or team members, where not just the dollar value is the great payout, but also maybe the legacy, whatever that is that's most important to you in transferring that business. And lastly, you want to be attractive at any moment. You want other people to think, I'd either like to buy this business, I'd like to continue to run this business, whatever that is. You want to be valuable, transferable, and attractive at any moment. So the topic today for value acceleration is the 5 stages of value maturity. We're going to identify, we're going to protect, we're going to build, then we're going to harvest, and then we're going to continue to manage. Let's talk a little bit about the identify stage. 80 to 90% of the average business owner's net worth is locked up in their business. Think about that if you're a business owner. You work really hard, you're continuing to reinvest to grow that business. Maybe you can take out profits here and there. Certainly, many of you run expenses through your business that helps to defer your day-to-day costs. But at the same time, if you really sat down and thought about it, the majority of your net worth really is locked up in that business, an illiquid asset. Yet 98% of business owners don't know what the value of their business actually is. So, question, do you know how much your investment portfolio is? How often do you check that online or via your statement? But that's not the greatest piece of your net worth. And then when you're managing your portfolio, do you do it yourself or do you get advice? You're running your business. If this is your first business, you're running it and you've never done it before. Should you have a coach, an advisor, someone to help you think through the decisions you're making? Are they best for the near term and long term of my business? Perhaps you should treat your largest asset similar to the way you treat your portfolio. Because here we see the value of your business, This is most business owners' perceived value, but then there's their actual value. It might be significantly less, and yet it's such a huge piece of your overall net worth. Why do I care about this? Why do you care about this? Well, more than 50% of business owners are 64 years or older. They own 63% of the businesses in the United States, and 76% of them plan to transition over the next 10 years, 48% of them over the next 5. 70% of businesses put on the market never sell. How are you going to stand out from that wave when the time comes? That's what being prepared, that's what being attractive, transferable, and value at any moment really is about. So when we're identifying, what are we trying to identify? What do we already have? What is the value of that business? What risks are lurking out there for you? Defining that baseline measurement of value. As I mentioned, 80% of business owners, 98% of business owners don't know what their business is actually worth. They have not had a valuation. Understanding what drives value. So many people just look at the dollars and cents, the EBITDA, the actual tangible assets. But in value acceleration, we believe and can demonstrate that more than 70% of the value of your business is actually in your intangibles, your 4 C's as we call them, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then understanding what metrics need improving. If this is the first time you've ever run a business, even if you've run multiple, but especially if it's the first time, how do you know what buttons to push, what levers to pull? Is your business as valuable as you think it is? So what are our key elements of the identify stage? Annually scoring and understanding, so quantifying the value of those intangible capitals. Annually valuing your business and identifying the range of value. So the value of your business isn't necessarily the same in any given year. Think about business cycles. Even if your EBITDA, your earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, is consistently $5 million, there are times that $5 million is worth more and times that it's worth less. Many of us know over the last few years, money has been extremely cheap. Interest rates, incredibly low, historic lows. That allowed a lot of money to be sloshing around, for lack of a technical term, to be available for people to want to buy businesses. And in those moments, the competition raised those valuations that people were willing to pay above what they would have been in a tight monetary cycle. Now we've been watching the Federal Reserve tighten interest rates, raise interest rates. We've been watching the banks pull back in their lending, whether it be because of the failure of Silicon Valley or First Republic, or just there could be a slowdown coming. A lot of people have been expecting a recession. Those are times when that value will fluctuate. So understanding what your business can be worth through the entire life cycle of your business, just in case one of those moments that isn't on your timeline comes along. Understanding your 3 gaps, your profit gap, your value gap, your wealth gap. What do I mean by those? Your profit gap is the difference between your profit in your company, say 10% margins, and the margins of the best-in-class companies in your industry. Maybe they make 15%. How do you know what the average company makes in your industry? How do you know what the best-in-class? You need someone with access to those tools to really understand that, or maybe an industry trade organization, but you need a way to understand where do you rank within your industry. Your value gap. Your value gap is the difference between the top multiple someone's willing to pay for your company, 3 times earnings, 5 times earnings, 10 times earnings, whatever that is, and what they're willing to pay for the best in class, those companies that have best in class profits. So now if you think about it, if you were at a 10% profit and your competitor was at 15, and you make that $5 million, and someone's willing to pay 7 times your company's earnings. Okay, so your company's worth $35 million as currently constituted. But let's say instead you had that best in class 15% profit. Now that 15% profit looks like 7.5 million as opposed to 5 million. 7.5 million also no longer gets a 7 multiple. Maybe that gets a 10 multiple. Now that company is worth 10 times 7.5, 75 million versus 7 times 5 million, 35 million. You more than doubled your company by paying your company's value, by paying attention to your gaps. And last but not least, your wealth gap. To some degree, we start businesses to benefit ourselves, our family, and the causes we care about. What is the number that you need to sell your business for to take care of those? Yourself, your own personal goals, the people you care about, and the causes you care about. Those are things we want to understand. And then lastly, what's your real number? What's your tax number? Most business owners really don't understand how much they will actually net in a sale for themselves after they pay taxes. You have a silent partner in your business. It's the US government and the state you live in. A lot of times they're not so silent, but let's call them a silent partner for the moment. When you go to sell, you are going to have tax implications. What is the right structure that you could have created in order to minimize those taxes, maximize the value to yourself and those people and causes you care about? These are the kinds of things we want to realize in the identify stage. Next is protect. You've built a valuable asset. Now, a lot of people who've heard me talk about these stages say, wait a minute, why does build come after protect? Because protecting value is the first step in building value. If we can't hold on to what we've already built to this point, we can't continue to build upon that. It's the basic building blocks. So this is really going to talk about risk mitigation in 3 categories: personal, financial, and business. So those are your 3 legs of the stool, as we like to call them. You can see here you've got those 3 legs holding up that stool: personal planning, business planning, and financial planning. There are 4 pieces on the seat of the stool. There's the community contribution, there's your professional management and organizational structure, there's your personal investments, and then there's the operating business. So as we look at the different things we need to protect, if we look at the personal side, it's really protecting against those 5 Ds that I mentioned earlier. What can we do to ensure that everything continues if one of those should befall us? On the financial side, we have market risks within our business, within our portfolios. We have diversification risk. Again, 80 to 90% of our net worth tied up in our largest asset, our business. Personal loans and debts, personal lawsuits, loss of earning power if one of the 5 Ds should befall us, long-term care, things we need to think about. And then on the business side, you've got your customers. How solid are those customers? What do those contracts look like? How do we ensure that our biggest customer doesn't go work with our biggest competitor? Who are key people? Are there people that if they left the business, it would be devastating to us? If so, how do we ensure they want to stay? What are we doing to incentivize them? We call it recruit, rewarding, and retaining your best employees. There's the economy. Everybody thought we were going to have a recession in 2023. It hasn't happened. Is it going to come in 24? We don't know, but how do we protect ourselves? General distress in the industry, something you don't see. The old Tylenol case where, someone got killed from their product, and what did they do? How did that hurt their brand? How did they recover from that? That's an extreme example, obviously, but just general environmental changes, things that can happen that we're just not prepared for. Dependence on the owner. If you are the business, which most business owners are, if you are the business, then how valuable, attractive, and transferable is that business when you want to leave it? And then obviously loans, debt, other things that the businesses have in place. So what are our key elements of the protect stage? Taking a shorter term look, mitigating our risks, defining those risks into those three categories we talked about: personal, business, and financial. Developing 90-day action plans on two of those paths, personal and business. What are we going to do to prepare ourselves to reach that one goal, making our business transferable, attractive, and valuable at any given time? Creating our contingency plans around those 5 Ds. Formalizing your advisory team. Who's on your team? Who's there to help you know what those next steps are? And then lastly, asking yourself, how much risk am I willing to take to grow? Because if you're not willing to continue to take risks to grow, then it may be time to think about exit. That's really the decision we talk about as value advisors, is helping a business owner understand, if I'm not growing, I'm dying. So making that decision every 90 days, are we looking to grow, or should we start to think about that exit? Because there's a lot of work to do if it is time to think about that exit. Building. So building value in your company. There's really two ways to build value, and I kind of touched on this when I talked about your profit and value gaps. You can do it by increasing your cash flow or EBITDA, and EBITDA increases due to operational and financial enhancement initiatives. So things like improving your expense controls and management, identifying opportunities for operational efficiencies, determining the more profitable subset of customers and business you want to be involved with, and then improving your working capital needs. Those are actually the harder versions. We all know we're really trying to be as efficient as we can probably in cash flow and EBITDA. There are certainly things we can improve, but that's harder. Increasing your multiple is actually easier to do. And how do we increase our multiple? That's due to those de-risking and operational initiatives that I talked about, making your business more attractive to another owner, looking at appropriate growth strategies, both organic within your business and inorganic. Maybe it's time to make some acquisitions. Maybe it's time to think about that. Improving your budgeting and forecasting processes, and then having concrete evidence as to why we're making capital investments. That question I just asked, how much am I willing to risk in order to grow? So understanding that, and then those things can increase that multiple. And as I mentioned in my example I gave, you could see with not a ton of work, that business's valuation went from 35 million to 75 million. And it was really about increasing that multiple, as the tweak to cash flow was actually relatively small. So what are the key elements of my build stage, your build stage? Viewing the business's value from a long-term strategy and identifying those strategic actions we need to take. How do we increase cash flow to best-in-class margins? What are those best-in-class margins? Did we identify them back in stage one? What strategic actions do we need to take in order to increase our 4 Cs? Again, I'll define these in the next stage, but there are human capital, our structural capital, our social capital, and our customer capital. Those make up 70% of the value of your business. What strategic actions need to be taken to drive growth and drive culture? How do we recruit, retain, and reward those key employees? Your culture is a very important piece of that. And lastly, we really believe these 90-day sprints. I've done it 1,000 times. You come up with a plan for the year, and here we go. We're going to do 50 things this year. And we get started, and a couple, and then business happens, and life happens. And all of a sudden, we're running, and we're running as fast as we can. And those nice ideas we wrote up on I'm famous for white sticky pages up on the wall in my office, marked up with a nice black marker. They go in the corner and we don't get back to them because the next one got put on top of it, or we're just stuck in the day-to-day run of the business trying to stay ahead of the world. So we believe very strongly in 90-day sprints. What are we going to accomplish as a team in this quarter? And what are we going to do to make sure that the things that happen day-to-day don't get in the way of those? Those are 90-day sprints. That's how we believe you achieve compounded growth. So here's where we're going to talk about those 4 capitals. So you're starting from the top right, your structural capital. That's your efficiency within the business. How efficient are we? Do we have systems and processes in place? Are they documented? Could someone take over this business tomorrow, whether an internal or external candidate, and run it easily and efficiently because we've built the structure for them? Your customer capital. Do you have lifetime customers? Are they on recurring contracts? Do they make up a majority of your business? Are you stuck with the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle? Does 80% of your business come from 20% of your clients or customers? It's not unusual, but it's important to recognize. Can we diversify away from our largest clients so that they're not a huge piece of our revenue? We still want them. We don't want to lose them. We want to care for them, but can we diversify? Can we diversify the offerings we're making? Maybe we're selling our largest customer 1 or 2 products, and we could upsell them. They could have 3 or 4 or 5. Again, diversifying that revenue stream. Those recurring contracts, how locked in are they? These are all things that potential buyers are going to look at because they're going to make it more likely that the business is sustainable. Sustainability makes the business attractive. Our social capital. Is there an organizational vision? Are we driving towards something? Are we looking to be the best widget maker? Are we looking to produce more widgets? Are we looking to be the most cost effective? What is that vision? How do other people perceive us? What is our reputation in the world? All of those things make up your social capital. And then lastly, human capital, your team. I put them last, but they are by far probably the most important. You don't function without your team. So that human capital, how much institutional knowledge is in there? What is your succession plan? If you are going to exit, okay, what happens first if it's not on your terms? Who's there to pick up the pieces and make sure the business can continue? If it is on your terms, how long do you need to stay with the new owner of the business? How many people on your team are going to stay? Is there a retention plan? That institutional knowledge, as you know, is key to running the business every single day. So a new owner is going to want to have a lot of that human capital and that institutional knowledge, as well as, again, just while you're owning your business. Everyone talks about accelerating the value of your business for when you sell it. I believe you want to accelerate the value of your business while you own it. You know, I see a question here. Someone asked, where does your company's team come into play with all of this? I can't tell you the number of business owners that I've talked to that say, I can't tell my team I need all this information. They're going to know I'm selling. They might. That's why if you don't wait until you're ready to sell to do this work, it just looks like a normal operation of the business. If you're building value throughout the time you own the business, you're going to earn more, you're going to increase the value of the business, you're going to have it prepared if the business needs to be sold, and you're going to have operational excellence just ingrained in the culture of your business. So questions of your CFO to look at last 5 years of numbers, to look at all the details of the books, to incent your team, to understand how long they want to stay. Those all just become regular operations. There's no awkwardness around preparing to sell because nobody on the team recognizes there's anything different going on. It just looks like normal operations. Now we start to kind of get to the fun part. Stage 4 is the harvest. Now, I guess the part at the end of the harvest is fun. The actual harvesting requires some work. I'm going to get to this quote in just a second. There's really 6 steps to selling a business. You need to prepare the business for sale and gather due diligence documentation. I can tell you, due diligence has increased probably 5-fold in the last few years. It has gotten a lot harder to get through all the requests, all the legal, all the financial. So making sure that you're ready when that time comes takes a lot of preparation. Then you have to find a buyer. Now, again, in the last couple of years with a lot of money floating around the economy, there were a lot of unsolicited reach outs. But if you're not ready, you can't take advantage of that. And then now with money starting to tighten, we have to do more work to find a buyer. Then you have to negotiate the terms. You have to do final due diligence. You have to go through the transactional documents, which you're going to want a team on your side to go through that, a banker, an attorney, etc. And then there's the transition. The new owner doesn't want you walking out the door tomorrow, whether that's an external buyer or a family transition or internal to your management team. They're going to need you for a little while. This is why taking the time to prepare is so important. You don't sell your business 6 months after you decide. You can, but you're not going to maximize that value for yourself, your family, the causes and people you care about. Now, why do I like this quote? I heard it at a business event a couple of years ago. Confidence in what you're doing requires two components: experience and knowledge. If this is indeed your first business you've ever started, or even your second or third, the odds are that the person on the other side of the table buying your company has more experience in buying and selling companies and more knowledge on how to do it. That's likely their job, whether they're a banker, whether they're a private equity firm, whomever that buyer is, there's a very strong chance that they have more experience and more knowledge than you. So guess what? Their confidence is higher. How do you increase that confidence for yourself in preparing to transfer your largest asset? You build a team of experts. And again, it's always preparing for what's next. Could the family inherit the business? Certainly. Are you selling the business to an external buyer, a private equity fund, another competitor, whatever that might look like? Are the employees going to buy you out? All of these options have different implications. They pay out at different multiple levels. If you're looking to maximize the value, you're probably not selling it internally to your employees. If you care more about legacy, selling your business to your employees may be the best option for you. A good mix of making the most money and optimizing your legacy, or excuse me, not making the most money, making a fair amount of money, enough to fill your wealth gap, but also to continue that legacy. And then of course, there's also the internal family transfer. So what are our key, and you can see some of the key advisors here on the screen. You've got your business advisor, your coach, whomever's telling you what the best steps are to improve the value of your business. You've got your CPA. You've got your financial advisor. You've got an investment banker or a business broker, depending on the size of your business. An experienced professional who knows who the buyers are, how to structure a deal, how to best work with your CPA and your attorney to minimize the taxes, to optimize the outcome. And then of course your attorney. You really don't want a one size fits all attorney. Again, you have a different attorney for your trusts and your estate documents than you do for your business. And the attorney who's helped you operate your business for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years may not be the same attorney who should be selling your business. They may have someone at their firm, but likely they are not as skilled in transactions as the person on the other side of the table. So again, don't you want that confidence that the experience and the knowledge, you'll see the scales in that attorney's hands, those scales are balanced. You've got an equal opportunity on both sides of the table. If you can tip them in your favor, that's even better. So what are the key elements of the harvest stage? Consider all your exit options. There are lots of them. And if you haven't talked to an experienced professional, you can't possibly know what they all are. Consider partial options. Again, 80 to 90% of your net worth is tied up in your business. Maybe it's time to just take a few dollars off the table. Maybe the business cycle has been really good. Maybe your industry is peaking right now and your multiples are off the charts and you just want to put some money in your pocket to say, okay, I've got my breathing room money. I've got enough that I'm not worrying every month about how I'm making it. I've put myself in a decent position. I know my family's taken care of. Now I can go try to grow, because again, continuing to grow means taking additional risks. Consider the deal terms and structures. Not all deals are created equal. The same dollar amount on the table with a different structure can look very different. And again, if the other side of the table, the person acquiring the business, has more experience and knowledge, they likely can, sorry, I just saw a question, I apologize. They likely can structure a deal that you maybe don't understand, and you maybe don't have all of the details, and you don't know, what is my net number? What does that really work out to for me? Did I optimize my value? Did I get the outcome I was looking for my three legs, my personal, my financial, and my business? And then lastly, preparing that detailed strategy to exit. All of these are the key elements of the harvest stage. It's a lot. There's a lot to do. And that's why when someone comes to me and says, I want to sell my business in 6 months, I say, oh no, you're like 3 years behind. So when do I think you should be thinking about this? Again, there's two answers to that. If you haven't made this a regular practice in your business, then you need 3 to 5 years to appropriately prepare and optimize your exit. If you are making this and you really want to accelerate the value and optimize your business, making it attractive, transferable, and valuable at any moment, the answer is start now, continue it, even if your exit is years, even decades away. I see that one of the attendees has asked me, I've heard about an ESOP, should I learn more about them? So employee buyout. An ESOP is a form of a retirement plan. It is an employee buyout for those that want to transfer their business to their employees. There are the good of an ESOP, structured certain ways. An ESOP can actually be tax-free to the selling owner. They also allow you to transfer that legacy. Maybe you've had employees that have worked a really long time for you, and you want to reward them as you get your reward. An ESOP is a manner to do that. What are some of the downsides? Because it is the ESOP structure is created within a retirement plan, the company can only sell for what is independently determined to be fair market value. Now, that can be a very different number than what you could get from a private equity firm or a financial buyer. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just that may not be the way to maximize your top line number. Now, if you do structure the ESOP in a certain way, and it's too nuanced to get into in detail right now, that it does become tax-free, maybe that lower number, that fair market value net to you, is actually more than what you would have gotten by having a bigger top line number. So these are all things to understand. And yes, an ESOP is a good place to explore. Thank you for the question. Now we're going on to manage and managing. The key elements of managing are continuing to work with your financial advisor or your wealth manager. This is where we're living our personal plans and vision. So that third leg of the stool. Are you actively managing your business prior to exiting? Shouldn't you think about managing your own life after? So we call that your third act. Why third? Kind of think of school and education as your first, your work life your second, and then your third act. Why is this so important? 76% of business owners polled regret selling their business 1 year after the deal. And it's usually not about the money. It's about, what do I do now that I don't own my business? You can only play so much golf. I hate golf, so you really can only play so much golf. You can only go on so many vacations. I love vacations. You can still only go on so many. Why people regret it is they don't know who they are. So many people have their identities wrapped up in their business. I am the founder of 12 Points. This is what I do. I love to steal the line from the recent Top Gun Maverick movie. He says at one point, I'm a naval aviator. It's not what I do, it's who I am. It's why he struggled with transition to anything else. It's the same thing with CEOs, business owners. They are their business. They've been their business for so long. So you need to plan ahead and have a team that helps you think about what does that look like afterwards. The other story I'll tell, my dad retired for the first time when he was 55-ish. He stopped running his garage and he didn't get out of bed for 4 days. On the fourth day, he got up and he went and found a job. 19 years later, he's still turning wrenches. It's not because he can't work. It's because he doesn't know what to do otherwise, and he won't let me do this planning for him, that's for sure. So the cobbler's dad, in this case, goes barefoot. Then this is one of my favorite quotes, and look, it's really hard as a business owner. We're in it every day. I think it's funny that it's Dolly Parton who said it, but don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. So when I mentioned helping business owners was a calling for me, that's what I think about. I think about the business owner who misses out on the things that matter in life because they're most important, they're most involved in thinking about what's going on day to day in their business. Not that that's not important. It likely is what provided the great life that you can have with your family, but looking for balance. So don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. We have about 7 minutes here for further questions, so I'm going to take a peek. Someone asked me, what's the process in recognizing what stage you're actually in? Well, if 80 to 90% of business owners, excuse me, if 98% of business owners don't know the value of their business, I would say almost all of them, 98%, need to start with identifying. So if you start with identify, that will allow you, once you know everything and what it is that you have, then you can start looking at your risks. What holes do I have? How do I protect myself? We can then go on to, okay, I've covered the holes. The base is solid. The foundation is here. How do I build more value? How do I work on those 90-day sprints, probably with an advisory team, to build more value in my business, to close that profit gap, to close my wealth gap, to close my value gap? How do I do that? Then we can go on to harvesting it. That's, again, first part, not so fun. Sorry for Laura, my investment banker on here. But once you actually get that wire into your account and you've harvested the benefits, that's pretty fun. And then lastly, continuing to manage your third act. So I would say almost everyone, 98%, needs to start with identify stage. How do I bring my family into this? It's really important, right? And not necessarily into the business, although that's possible, but your family is living this with you every day. Again, going back to being so busy that we're struggling to make a life, they're living it with you. You know, having that conversation, what do they want out of this? Most people, not all, most people are trying to grow that business in order to take care of their own goals, the people and causes they care about. If that's the case, what do those people in your life want? What does the family, what are they looking for? What are their goals? Really understanding that and talking about, wow, I'm probably going to have to stay on 2 to 3 years after I sell the business. When do we want to retire? What does that look like? I need to build that into my plan for when exit happens, because exit isn't true exit. It's transfer and then likely exit a couple years down the line. How do you bring your business into this process? I talked a little bit about that. Again, thank you for the question. It was making it a systematic, regular part of what you do, creating 90-day goals and sprints, analyzing what's going on during that time frame. Were we successful at the end of the 90 days? If not, why? How do we make sure that whatever is on that 90-day sprint list gets done no matter what? That's how you institutionalize the process. And again, then we avoid that awkwardness that comes up when, oh, I can't tell my CFO I'm selling. He might leave me before I sell, and then my business isn't as valuable. Or my chief salesperson, they're going to know I'm selling. They're going to see something. They're going to feel it. not if it's institutionalized, not if it is a regular part of your business to accelerate the value of your business and make it attractive, valuable, and transferable at any moment. That avoids that awkwardness. And then lastly, I see one last question. Feel free to ask more if you'd like, but I see one last one. Who should be managing this process for me? Well, it can be different for different people, but most likely you don't have the experience, the knowledge, or the time to be the one managing this process. Having an outside advisor who's successfully transitioned businesses in the past can be extremely valuable. And as you look at it, yes, there is a cost, there is an investment to having this advisor, this team of people that are helping you through. But think about my example from way back at the beginning of the webinar. That company that's got 10% margins, and if 5 million was too big, let's make it smaller. $1 million in EBITDA. They've got 10% margins. If they can get to 15% margins, that's going to be 1.5 million. Now they've got a 5 multiple on a million is $5 million. A 7 multiple on $1.5 million is $10.5 million. They've doubled the value of the business by paying attention to making it more attractive, valuable, and transferable. Yes, it costs you something to do that, but bringing in the experience and the knowledge and how to do it got you a much greater outcome, multiples of that outcome, pun intended. I hope this was all really valuable for today. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. It is 8:44 and we're out of questions. So if you want to chat more, we here at 12 Points would love to help you. You can email one of the CEPAs on our team, either Maya at 12points.com, myself, Dave at 12points.com, and the 12 Points is spelled out, or Manny at 12points.com. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll join us next month for the 5 Ds. I kind of referred to them earlier here in the webinar. Hopefully I enticed you, and we'll be announcing that date soon on our LinkedIn. So check out 12 Points Business Advisors on LinkedIn, sign up to follow us, and I think you'll find some more helpful and valuable information there. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your month.